without water or shade.
They say we see things as we are, not as they are. Santorini is a relatively small island in the Aegean in Greece, and humans see it as beautiful. It's actually called Fira, and it used to be roundish until the volcano erupted in the heart of the island around 1600 BC, creating this. That view of the volcano and the big blue and the magnificent sunset, the white houses clinging to the cliffs above the underwater caldera, overlooking the sea, is what made the island one of the must-go places for people around the world. And Santorini is packed with tourists every summer. Back in the day, before tourism, the only way to get from the old port to the town above was donkeys. Donkeys carried people and goods and building material and everything a society needs, up and down over 500 cobbled steps all day, every day. Today there is a new port with a road that leads to town and a cable car for the old port. The steps are still there, of course, and so are the donkeys that have been offering tourist rides up and down those steps for decades. Taking a donkey ride to the old port used to be one of the things to do in Santorini, part of the Greek experience, the island experience. The donkey rides were actually the point where the old meets the modern, where the sailboat meets the local muleteer, where you'd get the taste of the authentic and the raw, the taste of how things used to be, a taste of a life and a world that is dying as it gives into the modern way of things. The donkey rides are also dying in Santorini. 2019, after protests and articles and media exposure on the life of those animals and the unbelievably harsh conditions in which they work in, made the public refuse donkey rides and prefer the cable car or even walking up and down those 500 steps. Most of them are just waiting now under the brutal Greek summer sun, and the local muleteers are complaining that they can't even cover the animals' daily expenses. The truth is that it is a very hard life, and by today's standards and our views on animal rights, this is abuse. Most of them today are mules, not donkeys. I don't know why. Some of them take long journeys to get there and then long journeys back home at the end of their shift. They spent 10 to 12 hours under the brutal Greek summer sun that for anyone who hasn't been on a Greek island in the Aegean, it is impossible to understand how burning hot it is. They have no access to food or water for the entire day, and the reason, of course, is that if they did, those steps that are covered in feces anyway would be 10 times more dirty and 10 times more slippery and dangerous for the tourists. And as they finish their shift, they have to make their way back home through the town, making a mess on the streets where we take our walks wearing our clean clothes and our fancy shoes. Many of them lick the stones for hours to quench their thirst and eat their own dried feces trying to get some hay leftovers. It is sad. Donkeys are as Greek as we are. They are deeply embedded in the Greek culture. They are the unknown heroes of the Second World War. They carried guns and machinery. They've built our houses. They've carried our goods. They were the only means of transportation for hundreds of years. They've been used and abused. They've worked until their final breaths and thrown off cliffs once they got old, to die weeks later with broken legs and in agony. They've been used in literature and songs and poems as symbols of the poor and the misfortunate and the honest and the hard-working Greek psyche. They've been carrying our civilization on their back without ever complaining. All our burdens, our artillery, our food, our trash, our furniture, our families, our households, and even the most recent unbearable burden, that is tourism. As we progress, the donkey is vanishing from the developed world. It has no place, really, not one that we want to see anyway, because donkeys and mules in Greek islands are still being used as garbage collectors and as transportation. They still help build houses and tourist resorts for us in islands like Santorini, where no vehicle can and no vehicle will ever be able to have access to. The ones in the front that we don't like to see anymore are a reminder of the ones we don't see, of the ones we don't want to know about, of the ones we keep failing to acknowledge as working members of a family. Santorini, like the rest of the country, is racing to catch up with the Western world, but it's failing. And the donkey is a symbol of that failure. We're with one foot in the West of the 21st century and the other foot in the 1950s. Apart from smiling in stuffed toys and t-shirts and posters and baby wazis and statues, the donkey has no place anywhere we want to see. We don't want to see it work, but yet it still works. We need it to work. We don't want to see it loaded with more weight than it can carry, but yet it still helps build the hotels we'll stay in next year. It is there, but it isn't. The donkeys and the mules in Santorini always stand with their backs to the view, to the caldera, to the sunset. They're facing the wall. That view that we pay a lot of money for, to them is worth nothing. It almost feels like they're turning their backs on us, on everything we stand for and everything we enjoy, on our ethics or the lack of it, on our world, our species, on the way we've used animals and misused them, on our inability to respect and protect them, on our culture that makes jokes out of symbols and cuteness out of pain, on the tourists that enjoyed riding them for years until they read somewhere how this is abuse and now pass them by, walking down the steps that so many animals left their final breaths in, leaving them jobless, useless. Once in a while, the wind blows in the caldera, picking up what's left of their dried poop and violently throwing it to the tourists' faces and freshly washed hair and clean clothes. It happened to me 3 times as I was there filming them for hours on a windy day, and brought a huge smile to my face. What a funny revenge on our pretentiously superior human species from that animal that works for us until the day it dies.